Today, this is the Magnate. You call it mentoring on television. We call it lending a voice to business growth. We're going to be lending a voice to the growth of our business today. And we have who we call Mr. Economist. Yes, he's always there, lending voice to a lot of economic issues in the country to ensure that we have an enabling environment. Let's give you a brief citation of his person. When we come back, it will be an interactive session.
Dr. Muda Yusuf is the immediate past Director General of the Lagos Chamber of Commerce and Industry, LCCI. He is an economist and has contributed immensely to the national economic discourse through his research-based analysis of policy of government as they affect various sectors of the economy. Dr. Yusuf obtained bachelor's degree in economics from the University of Ilorin and a master's degree in economics from the University of Lagos. He also holds a master's degree in business research and a doctorate degree in business administration, both from Swiss Business School, Switzerland. He has participated in various high-level public policy advocacy dialogues at the both federal and state levels with the aim of fostering private sectors' participation in Nigerian economic development. He has represented the Nigerian private sector in several economic and business policy formulation and review processes at the state and national levels. He is a leading advocate of an enabling environment for the Nigerian private sector and has a vast knowledge and exposure in business research and economic policy issues affecting businesses. He has worked closely with government agencies to ensure the creation of a conducive investment climate for the Nigerian private sector. He is a leading commentator on national economic and business policy issues.
The program is The Magnate. You're welcome back. I told you he's Mr. Economist. He's a popular face in the media, both print and electronic. It's a great pleasure to welcome to the studios of Ames Media Company Limited, Dr. Muda Yusuf, the immediate past Director General of Lagos Chamber of Commerce and Industry. Mr. Economist, you're welcome to the program, sir.
Thank you very much.
For businesses to thrive, you have to look at the environment. How would you place the Nigerian environment for business owners in the country?
Well, thank you very much for having me. The business environment is a multi-dimensional phenomenon. That is what we call the macroeconomic environment, which has to do with some major economic indicators. We have what we call the regulatory environment, which has to do with the impact of regulators on business. We have the infrastructure environment, which has to do with how businesses are coping with the challenges of infrastructure. Then you have the internal environment of business themselves. What kind of capacity do the businesses themselves have to be able to manage business? So you can see it's a multi-dimensional, multifaceted issue. And each of these dimensions impact the businesses in different degrees, depending on what sectors you are operating, depending on the location you are. For instance, even security has become a major factor now in business.
The larger environment.
Larger environment, you know. So there are so many issues. So if you really want to create what you call a conducive environment for business, we need to address all these various dimensions. Okay. And in addressing them, it's not only the responsibility of the federal government. The state governments have responsibility, the local governments have responsibility. And the individual investors also have a responsibility. So it's a collaborative thing. It's a collective, it's a synergy, yeah.
How do you think these factors affect the business, the operators in the present Nigerian state that we have?
Now, if you take the macroeconomic environment, the biggest challenge now that many businesses are facing is the challenge of inflation, the cost of production, the cost of operation. And it's a challenge because first, it's affecting business continuity, it's affecting business sustainability, it's affecting the capacity of businesses to continue to create jobs, and it's affecting and contributing to the mortality of businesses, especially small businesses. In fact, in the last 1 year, some costs have doubled. Some have even tripled.
Correct.
Even though we talk about inflation being at 17%, 18%, if you take some individual items impacting on businesses, you'll be talking of about 100% or more increase in prices. And if prices are increasing for investors, no matter what kind of investment, even the trader, it is not in all cases that you can pass on these prices or these increases in cost to the consumer. So to that extent, the investors are taking a very big hit. Some of them are forced to absorb a lot of this cost. Some of them are trying to reduce the quantity of their products to retain
quality,
to retain the price, because the consumers are very price sensitive. So rather than increase the price, they just reduce the quantity and offer it for the same. But generally, the inflationary environment is a key factor. The second major factor, which is also related in a way to the inflationary environment, is the environment around the foreign exchange.
They are related.
Now, the exchange rate now to the dollar, naira to the dollar, is around 515, 520, 525. And you know what that means, because this economy is highly exchange rate sensitive. So there's a pass-through effect. And this is affecting a whole lot of things. And it's also a major driver of inflation. Even multinational companies, big companies, they make requests for exchange, for foreign exchange. Sometimes they request for maybe $100,000, $500,000 something. Sometimes they get just about 10%. Sometimes about 20%. So many of them are forced to even also be patronizing the parallel market.
Okay.
Which the central bank, of course, is not comfortable with. Then there is this, volatility in the rates. And all these things create an environment of uncertainty. It affects investors' confidence.
You took it off me that the exchange rate is so high. I mean, 500 to a dollar. Can't we also do things, produce things that we can export to earn us foreign exchange, so that there should be some form of pari passu of this currency exchange?
You are very correct. Because when you talk about exchange rate, it's a function of your imports and a function of your exports. The import is putting pressure on the demand side. The export is the one that is creating the supply for foreign exchange. That is supply of foreign exchange. So if you have too much of pressure on the import side, and you are not seeing an improvement on the export side, or you are seeing a stagnation on the export side, then the exchange rate will continue to depreciate, which is what we are experiencing. So I take your point, we need to do a lot more in the area of exports. But exports is about competitiveness. Because when you are exporting and competing with other players.
Quality products.
Yes, other players around the world. Because you are not the only one. So your products must be of quality. The price must be competitive. Now, do we have the environment to ensure that we produce quality products at a competitive price? That is the question.
Beyond that, policies. When you have a good product, you even want to export. All the various policies that...
exactly.
That's another brick wall.
The policy environment is also an issue. I will give you an example. A number of exporters have complained to me when I was DG of LCCI that when they the challenges they face when they want to export their products. Sometimes the challenges they face are the ports. We have seen instances where many of them lost their products.
Because it may be perishable.
Yes, some of them are perishable. The quality deteriorated. By the time it got to destination, some of those products were rejected. Secondly, they complain also about foreign exchange policy as it affects them. The policy as it affects them is that when you get to export proceeds, you have to exchange the export proceeds at the official rate. Now, the official rate now is what we call the NAFEX rate. The NAFEX rate now is about 410, 411. So when you are bringing your export proceeds, the policy says that you have to exchange it at 410 or 411. And the exporters are saying that, why should I exchange it at 410 and 411 when the open market rate
is
it's over 500? So that in itself is a disincentive. So that is how sometimes policy can also create problems. And work even against what the government also seeks to achieve. We seek to achieve the promotion of export. We want to earn foreign exchange. Then you have an exchange rate policy or a foreign exchange policy that is discouraging exports.
You know, these are issues we're just analyzing. Really, what's the way out? The program is still the magnet. Let's go for a short break. When we come back, we'll still have interaction with Dr. Muda Yusuf, an economist par excellence. We'll be back shortly. The magnet parades professionals from diverse backgrounds, and it's a platform where you can also reach your target audience. All you need to do is to just talk to us to put your events, AGMs, and all that, so that you're assured of reaching that your audience. We still have with us Mr. Economist himself, Dr. Muda Yusuf, immediate past Director General of Lagos Chamber of Commerce and Industry. Thank you again for rejoining us.
Thank you very much.
Okay, now, we have said so much about the macro economy or the environment that you talked about. Let's now narrow it down to the office environment, where personnel are meant to work. Let's see how even the policies, the government, so many things can affect productivity in that wise.
Well, the work environment also has a number of dimensions. There is the physical environment, of work. The physical environment is about how conducive the physical environment is. Is it conducive? Is it hot? Is it too cold? Do you have the facilities with which the workers have to work? Because sometimes productivity is not just only about the person. It's also about the tools that you provide. If you have a very brilliant staff and it doesn't have the tools to work with, it will affect productivity. Mm-hmm. So the physical environment is very, very important. Although as a result of technology and all of that, there's also a gradual shift away from the physical to the digital. Virtual. So again, what kind of capacity are we building in the digital space? Because that is the dynamics of the workplace now. A lot of things are moving online. A lot of transactions are going digital. So the kind of environment we create for the effectiveness of work in the digital environment is also very, very important, especially now, given the kind of evolution and transformation that is taking place in the workplace. If a business is not active digitally, then it will affect productivity.
It will be going into extinction.
It will go into extinction, because that is the way the world is moving. There is also the environment, the psychological environment. What kind of psychological environment do we create? Because when you are talking of staff, you are talking of human beings. There are some managers or there are some bosses that relate to staff in a mechanistic way, just the way you relate to machines. You just get the machine to do the work and that is all. But again, that's what you call the humanistic phase. Approach. When you relate to staff, no matter how low they are, you relate to them as human beings. They have feelings, they have emotions. Some of them have, yes, they have families, they have, So apart from demanding accountability as far as their work deliverables are concerned, it's also important that you also care about them, about their families, about their health, because there are some bosses that don't care. All they want to see, just do the work and let the work go, which is a very mechanistic. In fact, we have seen instances where you see very big organizations. It's not for lack of resources, but you need to see the way they also relate to their staff. You need to see the kind of condition of service. We have seen instances where you see very big corporates that roll out billions of profits. Billions of naira in profits. And yet they maintain graduates at a casual level. Sometimes for 5 years, sometimes for 10 years. They disengage them without any benefits. I mean, this is not human.
No incentive.
No incentives, and there has to be some human face. And this is where the labor authorities also have a very big role to play. Because I've seen instances where some of these institutions, for a graduate who has worked for 10 years, They talk about one restructuring and all of that.
Just disengage.
Just disengage them. And I asked the guy, any terminal benefit, anything? He said nothing. And yet, these institutions posted billions of naira profit after tax. So the point I'm making is that we need to care about the person. And this principle applies to all cadres of
businesses.
For SMEs, sometimes I can understand, because you have situations where the SME owner is even struggling to even survive. And you can only give what you have.
What role does communication play in that regard?
Communication is very key, because so that you don't create an environment for rumors within the organization. You give a very good insight into what the situation is to the staff. You also inspire their trust and confidence. Because if there is no proper communication, it creates an environment for people to be guessing. It creates an environment for some false assumptions, as to the health of the business. So if there is proper communication, I think it helps to build the spirit, the team spirit, because you need a good team to be able to deliver in an organization.
Closely related, sir, is some form of transferred aggression. Yeah. Somebody may have been angered either at home or, let's talk of the metropolitan Lagos. You may have an encounter with maybe a transporter and all that, and then you come to the office to, unleash it to either staff or a superior. What's your counsel in that regard?
No, it is for the boss to be able to relate to that very well. Because when you see that there are issues with productivity, there are issues with the emotional stability of a staff, if you have a boss that the subordinate can relate to easily, they will share this with the boss. The boss can even ask them, are there other issues? Can we discuss it? The boss may not be able to solve the problem, but the fact that the empathy,
emotional intelligence.
Yes, you offer a listening ear. It has a way of making them feel that, yes, you care. But, in some instances, some bosses don't care. You see the mood of the person. You don't know whether he or she has some family problems. It could be all sorts of issues. You know how this environment is. Mm-hmm. People are dealing with so many social issues, so many complex issues. And unless you also show that kind of empathy and concern as an employer, you will not get the best out of the staff.
Okay, let's take the flip side now. When you have an employee, so to say, that's excuses, maybe irrespective of psychological things, and then you have will not be productive continuously. What do you do in that sense?
No, you see, in any work environment, the carrot and stick principle must apply. There must be consequences for action. The consequences may be positive, the consequences may be negative, depending on how the staff comes across. If you have a staff that is showing genuine commitment, hardworking, there has to be reward.
Sure.
If there's a staff that is not committed, very lackadaisical, doesn't care, because that's what you call some principles in management, where some workers are not so committed to the work. They are in the workplace only to see what they can get out of the place. And we have seen instances, especially among SMEs, where their staff have actually wrecked their business. Especially when you have cash transactions and all of that, all sorts of things happen. So there should be a framework, a reward system, a performance management framework.
Pressure.
Yes. To reward people appropriately and to also punish people appropriately.
Thank you so much. In fact, this is the MAGNATE, and then we are looking at things that affects the employer and employee. I'm sure it affects you. We are growing our businesses. Thank you very much for joining us.
Thank you.
You cannot be here without lending a voice to, is it an act now? It used to be a bill, the PIB, right?
PIA now.
PIA now.
Yes.
Okay, so how do you think that affects the, let me say, the ordinary citizen, the young businesses, because there's this fear or anxiety that a lot of things may change. Those in the health sector, they are thinking that they may lose their job, or those other people say, oh, there may be an increase in petroleum products. What's your take, sir?
Well, the Petroleum Industry Act is a very important legislation. And we must commend the present administration for seeing it through. It may not be a perfect legislation, and there is no perfection. No legislation is perfect. It is work in progress. It's a major instrument of reform in the oil and gas sector. It's a legislation that many investors have been longing to see, because there is so much uncertainty around the oil and gas, and that is affecting the confidence of investors. It's slowing down the growth of the sector. It's affecting the flow of private capital into the sector. So it's a very good thing. It has a very profound investment effect. You are likely to see a lot more investment. And if you see more investment in that sector, it will affect positively all Nigerians, because there's a strong relationship between investment and GDP growth. There's a strong relationship between investment growth and even employment generation. You know? So we are likely to see a lot of investment. There's also the revenue effect. As the investment grows in the sector, we are likely to see a lot more revenue, tax revenue and all of that coming into the government. You know, we're also likely to see a lot more, self-reliance in terms. I mean, we spend so much now. We spend so much now importing petroleum products.
That's
We are talking about billions of dollars annually. So if we're able to get it right with legislation around oil and gas, we are going to see a lot more investment in refineries.
But you see, that's the concern. Aren't we say that we are no more a monoproduct economy. We are still more or less focusing on the oil sector. What's the effort in diversification of, going into other sector to earn us the foreign exchange we talked about earlier?
Well, the important thing is that, we are no longer monoproduct.
Okay.
From the point of view of the structure of the GDP, that's the gross domestic product. If you look at the structure of the GDP, oil accounts for just about 10% or so of the GDP, But in terms of revenue and in terms of foreign exchange earnings or export earnings, oil sector still accounts for about 90%. So it comes back to what we said earlier about export capacity, supporting the non-oil export sector. Okay. And you can only do that if you create the right environment for exporters to be competitive, both in price and in quality, remove all these barriers, all these frustrations that they face, and we'll be able to get there.
Okay. It's been trending lately, the issue of VAT. Yeah. I hear states are clamoring to also be collecting. So what does that portend for the ordinary Nigeria and even the young SME? Does that mean that the SME will pay VAT to the federal and state, or what is all the issue about? Well,
at this stage, it's a constitutional issue. It's an issue before the judiciary. And what is important at this time is for the judiciary to expeditiously come into it and interpret the law. Okay. We have seen the pronouncement from the Federal High Court in Port Harcourt. The FRS has gone to the appellate court. And that has to be quickly resolved, because already it's degenerating into some sort of confusion. The states are giving directive, the FRS is also giving directive. So in order to clear all of this, I think there is need for the judiciary to move very fast in the light of the confusion that is being created. Having said that, it is very important, in line with what we have been saying about fiscal federalism. So the whole principle of this federalism is also to promote equity in the way these revenues are shared. Go to Ogun State, for instance, they have so many industries there. If you see the quality of the roads and all of that, and what is the state getting? The only thing the state gets from this massive presence of industry is the payee.
Income tax.
Yes, personal income tax. And many of the staff are factory workers anyway, so how much are you going to get? The company tax is going to the center, the VAT is going to the center, the import duty is going to the center, the education tax is going to the center, the technology levy is going to the center.
So the agitation is the It's viable.
No, it's viable. It's in line with the clamor for proper federalism.
Okay.
Can call it whatever, and whether it's restructuring and all of that, but it is important. And it's also equitable.
Because it's important for us to clarify it, because at the end of the day, it's the SMEs and the business owners that will be at the receiving
Of course,
end.
the more revenue the states get, the better for the SMEs.
Finally,
Yes.
sir, we really thank you for coming. What's your counsel? I mean, this is a trying period for all. You know, it's not, nobody is spared. Because when you say even you, an earner, a worker and all that, a lot of pressure from those who are not earning. What's your counsel for us, sir?
Well, the counsel is that we should remain positive, we should remain hopeful, and the counsel to our leaders is that they should engage more. Nobody has a monopoly of knowledge. We should be looking at this within the context of partnership. They should engage more with investors, because so that we can together tackle these problems. Yes.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
It's been Dr. Muda Yusuf, the immediate past Director General of Lagos Chamber of Commerce and Industry. Mr. Economist, we call him. Thank you again for coming.
Thank you. Thank you.
It's been the Magnates. That's the way we do it here. You want to lend a voice, just give us a call. Remember to continuously follow us on our social media handles. Do join us same time next week when we shall bring you another veteran under Magnates and a major player in the sector. Until then, bye for now.